Quiet please, quiet please. Creative Studies is in session. Creative Studies. Office hours for the imagination age. Creative Studies with Geoffrey Colon. Trending topics on Creative Studies.
So if you're reading or listening to this, a disclaimer. You do you. Feel free to ignore any of these observations. What I mean by that is, whatever makes you more creative, excellent. I'm sort of sick of all the articles and lists on ways to do things better. So why am I making this? Basically, an article or a podcast around the 5 content design trends for 2023. Well, because it's interesting to observe the world around us. That doesn't mean we have to accept it or suffer fear of missing out. Remember, there really isn't anything on trend anymore for a variety of reasons. First, there's no real monoculture of what is popular by definition. Sure, everyone could say, hey, Stranger Things is really popular, but if you compare that to things that were popular 20 to 30 years ago, it's like comparing apples to oranges. Second, there will always be something that people find interesting. Something in the niche, something that's a little bit more underground, something that's more obscure. They're going to find things that they're going to want to, say everyone's into that not everyone's into. And then, of course, fashion itself, which we follow in terms of clothing, what types of music are popular, what movies are popular, what style of anything is popular. It's really been disrupted, which disrupts design, because we don't know what's in or out anymore. We might think like, hey, this is in, but it's not really in. You know what? I'm just going to wear my flip-flops to work. We don't really know what's in or what's out. Again, there's a number of people who've put together a bunch of think pieces on what's in or what's out. And maybe you might say, oh, this is just another one of those. These are just observations. Knowing this, here are 5 trends for content design that I've sort of spotted or have been influenced by, and why they're being utilized more in this year and probably, I note probably, into next. Number 1 is maximalism. Yes, minimal design is a given and will never really go out of style, especially flat design on a mobile site. It's just easier to read. But people right now don't mind a little bit of maximal design because after 2 years of living in a pandemic, we want to feel emotions. We want to be wowed a little bit. We want a little bit of overload in terms of colors and typefaces and fonts. It's okay to feel things no matter what you're seeking, whether it's a pair of sneakers or a software solution for your business. Oh, and don't make things too clean. That's not real. We don't mind realizing, wow, that person has a messy desk, as long as it isn't staged. Number 2, collaborations. It always takes a fiscal downturn to get people to work with others. I don't know why that's the case. Maybe it's because hardship leads everyone to unify. The more content we see with partners, the more reach it receives. And also in the world of mashup culture, where we're just so used to joint collaborations, and it's been around forever, it's not weird anymore to see 2 brands come together to work on things. Only people who don't really understand brands and want to go it alone or sort of brand dictators dislike collaborations. Word to the wise, go find another job. Number 3, something that looks like you made it on retro technology. Yeah, it's still in. No, I think 2023 is probably the last year for this, but typefaces and fonts from the late 1990s, natural photo shoots with vintage looks, they're probably in. But another thing that we should think about too is, how to do things that use the technology of that era. So we're trying to get all of these things to look like the content was made in that era of the 1990s. Why not just go and try to replicate it with technology? In fact, if you're trying to make your photos look real, like, hey, we don't want it to look like, these were shot for Instagram, don't go use a filter or Photoshop. Go use a disposable camera and leave some of the mistakes in. People want to see technology used in ways that provides the outcome that you're desiring. Like, I want to hear a tape where the hissing sound isn't manufactured with some audio filter. Number 4, inclusive design. Now, this isn't going away, and that's a good thing. Good design is good storytelling. But the story you're telling isn't just one to sell things. You see, every piece of content you create, well, it reflects a brand story. Who you are, what you do, what you care about. The way you design your content can say just as much about your brand as the content itself. Ultimately, despite your intentions, it's how your content is perceived that matters the most. Designing for inclusivity not only opens up our products and services to more people, it also reflects how people really are. All humans grow and adapt to the world around them, and design should reflect that. There are many factors that may affect how someone is included or excluded by content design, such as ability, language, culture, gender, age, you name it. The goal of inclusive design is to create content that a wider diversity of people can relate to. And we need to remember that not all elements of design, color, type, imagery, animation, etc., are interpreted by people the same way. What might inclusive design look like in practice, you're asking? Well, designing websites for low or limited bandwidth, as many people don't have equal access to the internet around the world. Using tools like Adobe's colorblind safe palettes. A lot of people can't see color correction in grids or infographics. Adding captions and alt text to online content. And breaking up large blocks of text to improve comprehension for people with learning disabilities. These are content design must-haves that can drastically improve someone's experience and make them feel included so they can learn more about what you have to offer. We would assume digital would be the starting and the ending point for everything. And number 5, content labs. The biggest issue in the world, well, hold on. There's a lot of big issues. Maybe the biggest issue in terms of content is that we assume digital would be the starting and the ending point for everything. So we assembled big teams that mimicked traditional forms of media prior to the internet. And of course, we fill our days with meetings for 18 months on end before making decisions based on data. Yeah, right. It's really your boss telling you to go with the color red. But that's a terrible way to look at the world because people choose what they want in what is basically a buffet-styled marketplace. Oh, geez, the food analogy, Jeff? So tired. Where we graze, sample, and then maybe consume things in quantities we shouldn't before we realize we've gotten ill from eating too much and move on to our next conquest. In other words, digital was supposed to make things interesting and open the world up to more experimentation. Instead, We've mired ourselves in the same slow movement we see in traditional media planning and marketing. And the content itself, a lot of terrible stuff that takes, 20 months to produce, 5 months to make a meme, 12 months to make a TikTok, 18 months to make a YouTube video. It's silly that everything should take 100 meetings and 100 months to make. That said, some stuff should take time. I'm not about doing everything fast. That's not what this is about. But it is time for digital content designers to open the world again with the lab concept. Now, what does this look like? We might see more of it in 2023, with teams possibly experimenting more. Sometimes an economic downturn will do that. Hey, I made this. Cool. Let's test it out. It's become the ad campaign now. Let's put more media behind it. Digital used to be filled with a bunch of bandits and pirate radio personalities way back when, but it's been filled with too many risk-averse types that treat a banner ad like they are solving world hunger, that approach TikTok in a way where they try to slow it down, which is really impossible because that's like saying they time the marketplace. Experimenting increases as a result of shrunk budgets. Nothing like scaling an experiment that didn't require 20 rounds of feedback.
Living at today's non-stop pace, it's harder than ever to stay fresh.
Creative Studies. Office hours for the imagination age. Studying is different in the 21st century. Creative Studies. Created by Geoffrey Colon in Seattle. All thoughts are his own.